the painting, the drawing. It just, when it's done, it's done. You know, it sits there. What do? You sell it, you try to promote it, you try to tell people about it, but I needed more from it.
Okay.
And so I started looking into different people who were making similar things, but then they would animate it. And so I showed the senior level course my first stop motion animation, and I had little plastic pieces, and I drew a piece of a bug on each, and it was a dead, like a bug trying to get off of its back. And everybody was so captivated by it because, you know, we're all stationary, static image makers.
Yeah.
And then I wrote to be continued on the to be continued. I was like, ah, everyone is so mad. And so I realized, I'm like, this is cool. Like having like not many of the pieces of art that we were making had that kind of connection with an audience.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Goals podcast. Today, I'm with the one and only Hannah Utecht.
Hello.
How you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So Hannah, you are, I'm gonna call you a filmmaker because I don't really know how to really express the way you are, describe the way you're, you know, multimedia artist, video production, stuff like that.
Exactly.
So it just kind of tells a little bit about yourself and then how you got started.
Right on. Okay. So this story is for all the Midwesterners out there. So I am from the Twin Cities, so St. Paul, Minneapolis area, and my whole life I was kind of going around the suburbs. And there's a couple of influences early on in my life that really like inspired me to communicate visually. I think that's how I like to describe it. And so it was, there's two institutions in that area, the Walker Art Center and the Minneapolis Institute of Art. And so like I could go to that like every year for high school. We went on a field trip there, and continuing into college, I stayed close for college too. We might get into that, but we don't have to. And then also my family, like they're all creators. Okay. So immediately I see to my mother, she is a fantastic drawer, and she can sew anything, you know, she really, whatever creatively she wants to put her mind to, she does it. And then my dad as well, like he made his own mobile art installation in the yard, and he builds like buildings with wood and carpentry and that kind of stuff. And then my grandparents, my mom probably learned that from my grandparents. So my mom and my dad are Kathy and Ron Utecht, and my mom's parents, Sandy and Tom Thompson, they were the same kind of way. Like they were always making different designs with stained glass and different works like that. Like one of my prized possessions is a little metal tree from her that has a stained glass top to it. And so, and I remember she made teddy bears. So it was just, people were always creating around.
It was art, yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't filmmaking, but there was, my cousins and I always got together and we put on productions over the holidays. And so they were like fun little theatrical things, but we started making commercials as well. Okay. And I can't wait to get my hands on those films one day and turn them digital, because it's going to be hilarious, because they were comedy. Like there was one where my cousin did a Tums commercial and she actually tooted during the commercial. Just like silly, fun 8-year-old stuff. You know what I mean? So really great stuff. And so that was kind of my institutions growing up. It was art. And then I had a high school teacher, Mr. Harold, who is a potter mainly, but he also let you explore whatever you wanted to. But I'll say the most transitional moment, I think, in my creative career when I was young, you know, really formative times, was he made us take a look at so he taught us everything, you know, what colors mean, what composition is, et cetera, and then how you can apply that to a real world job in a ad campaign. And then took us, and this is in high school, and so it's really young.
Yeah, and it's like not a lot of teachers do that.
Right.
High school, you're still trying to figure shit out. Like,
exactly. Yeah. So it's like, okay, stage 1 of an ad campaign is letting people know your brand. You have to be super obvious. And then maybe stage 2 is, and this is what we were taught then. Stage 2 is that you can get a little bit less granular, you know, like have a little bit more fun with it because people know your brand. And then that third one is like that vision that you had the whole time, but you had to be less obvious in the beginning, you know, to be able to teach people your brand. Yeah. And so that became the story of my life so far now. But yeah, I would say that kind of wraps it up.
Okay, that's for your beginning. So then how did you get into like filmmaking and video production and stuff like that?
Right.
College?
So, okay, so I'm thinking I went to school. So there's MCAD in the Twin Cities, really expensive art school. Of course, I wanted to go to it, but there, just across the border into Wisconsin, there's a polytechnic college called University of Wisconsin Stout, and they have an art department. And literally when I went, all the professors were the same from MCAD because they weren't full time, so they came over the border, made money in Wisconsin, and so like when I toured both, I saw the same level of work was coming out of both colleges, and I was like, well, I'll be close to home too. I have a younger brother, Daryl, and I absolutely love him. And my family, I'm like, I can stay close to family and get the same education, essentially. And so I went to Stout, and they have an art program, and I went to tour it. And the art department was closed for tours. And the graphics communications management program was open for tours. So I took that. And I kind of got sideswiped because of that. So I went into graphics communication management, and it was all of the more technical things. Like it was a big printmaking and brand management kind of thing. And at the time, I had two people in my life who were doing printmaking for a living, and they hated it. And so I think I went through 2 years of that. And then I said, you know what? I need to get back to what I wanted to do, art. And so my mom was a drawer. So I started doing studio art, drawing. And then there was a moment where I was really late in my schooling there, 4th year, and I was making bodies of work, and I said, the painting, the drawing, it just, when it's done, it's done. It sits there. What do? You sell it, you try to promote it, you try to tell people about it, but I needed more from it.
Okay.
And so I started looking into different people who were making similar things, but then they would animate it. Okay. And they were doing experimental work. So the brothers Quay, Josef Svankmajer, he did a stop motion version of Alice in Wonderland in the 80s. And so I started looking to people like that as my mentors, even though I never met them,
Yeah.
And so I remember the first time I don't know if anybody knew I was working in stop motion animation in my drawing class, because it was like your 4th year, you have your own studio space. There was this shift in a dynamic in my schooling at that time, because before the studio, you can imagine like white walls, easels, the smell of oil paint, and the school was open 24/7. So you could stay in that studio all night long. And it was a lot like filmmaking culture here that's developed, which is super intense, like amazingly, like people are involved. Yeah. And I don't know if that's always been a thing, but I've only been recently involved the last 2 years, and I see like what you're doing and what other people are doing that you've talked to. And like, I am now active in Nevada Women's Film Festival and Women in Film Nevada, and the culture around UNLV is just, it seems like it's been drilled into all of you to be that way. That's
interesting. I think like it's just been growing and growing.
Okay.
I think I've seen that. Well, I mean, Nevada's Women Festival has been around for like 10 years now, right? Like this past year was the 10th one.
The 10th anniversary,
so
Nevada Women's Film Festival.
I just think it's been growing and growing, so it's interesting to see. To hear what you're saying,
Okay. And so that was instilled at me in the beginning. But then the school, they shut down. They had a curfew, 12 o'clock or midnight, you were kicked out. And so, and then at that time I had my own studio space. So I was just like in my own head, trying to figure out my own voice. And in studio art, sometimes you don't need to collaborate with other people to make work at that stage and point in your life. So I almost adapted this lone wolf mentality that I couldn't shake for a while. And so it leads me to where I'm now, which we'll get to soon. But so the question was, we were talking about
how did you get from like the physical art to the visual art?
Yes. Okay. And so I showed the senior level course, my first stop motion animation, and I had little plastic pieces, and I drew a piece of a bug on each, and it was a dead, like a bug trying to get off of its back. And everybody was so captivated by it because, we're all stationary, static image makers. Yeah. And then I wrote "to be continued" on the "to be continued." I was like, everyone is so mad. And so I realized, I'm like, this is cool. like having like not many of the pieces of art that we were making had that kind of connection with an audience, right? So that felt really good. And then at this University of Wisconsin Stout, I believe they had just started having a film department, and so it was new, and I didn't need any more credits. I was about done, gonna graduate, and then I talked to the art department head, and I'm like, hey, there were some animation classes before the film department came up, and so I got special approval to be just dropped into the senior final level course of animation.
Wow.
And again, that pissed off a lot of people because they're like, I've been working for 4 years to get here.
Yeah.
And this art major just comes out of nowhere. And so that lone wolf mentality, like I had to like put on my armor essentially. Yeah. And so, but I've always been really nice, and it was a great experience, but that didn't help my lone wolf mentality. And so it was a fun thing where everybody made a little version of themselves, like out of a metal base, and then you put clay around it. And then we made a replica of the school, and then it was a zombie apocalypse inside of the hallways. And so it was a smart, strategic way for the professor to approach it this way, because as we moved the characters, they became more decrepit, because they weren't the best built. So zombie, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. So went into that, and then I'm like, okay, I am completely self-taught with camera, and at this point, and now I realize that this is what I want to do for a living. Yeah. And I have a bunch of student loans and no like technical training. And so I took a summer intensive cinema course at that same university. And Professor Pontucci, he is so amazing. He kind of let us do whatever we wanted, and there were 2 other students in the class that were older than the other students, just like I was. Mm-hmm. And I was paired with them, and we did a lot together. We learned a lot. We made 3 short films, and the professor put my film in a film festival without telling me, because I at that point you're not confident in yourself, and I got in, and
That's
so
awesome.
I'm very, very thankful for him for doing that. And then I was like, okay, how do I get into video without having any video experience? Mm-hmm. And so I did what some people do, and I was in a small town, not very many opportunities, maybe like 1 creative agency and 1 news station. Mm-hmm. So I got into news, but they wouldn't hire me either because I didn't have, I had a bug on its back and a zombie apocalyptic thing, And so what I did is I was like, okay, at that point, my dream job was to be the production manager at WQOW News 18, and I love WQOW's News 18, and they're going through a hard time right now, being a small news market, and they are like absolute heroes to me, and everybody that is in journalism is a hero to me, and it's so important. So thank you, everybody. Shout out to news media. But finally, my lone wolf mentality started to like shed away, because I was meeting a lot of people. A lot of people start their careers in small markets because it's a good entryway. And so I was meeting people from Texas. I was meeting people from Philadelphia. And I was like, people are moving and doing things. And I'm born in Minnesota, live in Wisconsin. It's time for a change.
Okay.
So we moved to Philadelphia out of nowhere, because a person I had met through that company was from that area. He had an internship in sports media there, and we just went. And it was an awesome time. I worked at a bar in the neighborhood, and they also let me do some advertising for them. Okay. So photography, graphic design. It was a super awesome time in my life. 5 months. Felt like forever, because all I was doing was job searching. Yeah. That's all. And making as much money as I can bartending in downtown Philadelphia. And then I got a call from Fox 5 in Las Vegas, where I met you. Yeah. And a lot of other people. Yeah. And then worked as a promotions producer there for 2 years. It was contracted, and left after my first contract ended, and got a job at a museum here in town in Las Vegas. And
not just any museum.
The Mob Museum. And they've given me a lot of opportunity, because they weren't, they hadn't built up the video production to like a visual standard of today's. Like, like they did amazing work, but there was a lot of opportunity to elevate it to like a cinema level.
Yeah.
And so over the last 2.5, 3 years, I've been progressively growing that with all of them. There's actually a fairly large marketing team that works there, and some of the most amazing designers I've ever worked with. And so what's great is that they can make, like, we all come up with the art direction together, and then they execute the parts, and then we pump life into it. And it's this fun, like, development that like I wish I could know how to do those design, like, and then implement it myself.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to be able to work as a team.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit,
Okay.
like, which is interesting. So the first question is, like, because we talked a little bit before the podcast, like you said, animation stuff.
Yeah.
What made you go into live action and not stick with the whole animation or going into 3D animation? Like, what changed there?
Okay. So live action scared me to death. Narrative scared me to death. And I was like, I just need to do it. I just need to take it face on. And so that's when I took that summer cinema intensive, and you were paired with a group of people to make a film. And mine still was so like Wes Anderson, and like, there was hardly any narration or like dialogue at all. And of course, I built the sets myself because I wanted that much control over the visuals. And it was fun building walls, actually. But and I think back on safety. And I'm like, I don't know how safe it was.
Yeah.
But it was, again, I was in a studio setting. So I had this huge studio. And so I just put up walls. And it was called 3 Lessons on Uncomfortable Silence. And it was just 3 situations. Maybe some people, like, if it was in a larger format, could have called it an anthology.
Okay.
But it was just 3 like little vignettes of a situation where there was a lot of silence, and it was a lot of just like emotion that was evoked. And
did you write it?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. It was strange because it's like, what is this trying to say? Well, it's supposed to be about uncomfortable silence. And so that's how I interpreted live action, because I couldn't do a narrative. Like, I've never been interested in, I've been interested in how things are cut, the angles, the lighting, the mood, the energy, and so I'm still trying to figure out what that means for my own craft.
Right.
Because it could mean so much. But so even my attempt at live action was not as live action or narrative as you would think it would be. But that's the one that my professor put into a film festival and
won something.
And it
got into the festivals. Okay.
It got into the festival, and I didn't know how people would react, because I especially put a really awkward silence at the end, just like put a hammer over it, and somebody stood up and went, "Yes!"
Oh wow. Okay.
Like punched the fist in the air, and I was like, that is for that person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it resonates with anybody else. That was such a cool moment.
That's awesome. So, because it seems like from like physical art to like visual art.
Yep.
So what is something that you want to, like, what would you consider yourself more, director, producer? Because a lot of the stuff, it seems like art direction, producer job that you do a lot. Right. And with the Mom Museum, you're actually producing stuff. So what do you think is, like, if you had to choose one thing, or if you wanted to pick something, what would it be? I think right now it would be like project management. Okay. Like, and how does that, maybe that translates to director, but it's a person that, okay, we've came up with a vision. We have a vision, we have a goal, delegating the tasks, making sure everybody's on point with what they're doing, having those hard conversations, but also making an environment for people to feel good and feel respected and feel like they can present their best selves. Like, that's what I love doing, is creating an environment for people to be open. Like, at the Mom Museum, we have one of our biggest projects right now is a podcast called Inside the Life. And a lot of that is like what you're doing here, making people feel comfortable to be able to tell their stories. And in my case, I'm dealing with
mobsters,
cops,
reformed criminals, corrupt cops.
Corrupt cops. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Former undercovers, and one specifically that is the first time him telling his story.
Wow.
And so it's all about the energy. That is what it's about. That's what excites me.
So what do you do, like, when it comes to the podcast? Like, do you just put everything together, or are you producing it as well? Like, are you in charge of like the visuals, how it looks and all that?
So the team that I work with, we have very specific roles. So we have a design team, we have a video team, we have a communications team, we have a web development team. And so, and there's a creative part of that where we all come together and we all brainstorm and then decide on directions. And then we make it come to life. So for example, you'll see the trailer for Inside the Life is it's a lot of motion graphics. So we say, okay, so for example, one guest, Javier Pena, he is and Steve Murphy, they're the main storylines behind Netflix's Narcos.
Okay.
And so, the guy that narrates the first one is supposed to be Steve Murphy. And so we interview these people. They're good friends at the museum. And so what represents their story? You know, like Pablo Escobar, that's who the manhunt was after, drugs, money, and just being like a badass undercover. And so like, okay, this is what the graphic looks like. And then the design team makes that. And then like, this is how we animate it to come together, and like what colors we need to use to say that this is a good guy. This is the not so good guy. And so,
so you're just kind of overseeing everything that pertains to it.
You know, it really, I work with a really, really, really talented videographer, editor, producer, director. And I hired him because he has a skill set to do a lot of things, just like I do. And so he can do things, I can do things, we can go back and forth. He can jump into my project, I can jump into his. And so literally, sometimes I'm doing just art direction and he's doing the whole thing. Okay. Sometimes he's directing, he's telling me what to do. Okay. And sometimes I am just listening, like in the podcast, I'm not the host like you are, the undercovers are the hosts. So I'm just behind there making sure that they're going to say next, and that they're breaking it down for everybody. Not everybody knows what a sit down is. Not everybody knows what a like all of their undercover lingo, just like, okay, can you repeat that again? Or, hey, like you found a moment for somebody to get a little bit more emotional and tell their story a little bit more, then you just like quietly stop things and ask them to go into this detail a little bit more, so still a lot of different roles. Sometimes I'm animating those graphics that they give us. Sometimes I'm making a soundscape for it, and so for the trailer, the team wrote the script, mostly with my direction from being a promotions producer. And we have awesome writers on the team too. So it's a group effort a lot of the times. And then like the designers will make the design and then we will animate it and then put it together, slap it together to make a good pacing and to deliver it well, put that underscore on it and really pump the storyline into it. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And you guys won an award recently.
Yeah, we did. We won Best New Podcast Signal Award, and it was a national competition. So brands like CNN, MarketWatch, and Trevor Noah's podcast. Yeah. They were all up for that too. And some of them got gold like we did, and some got silver. And so it was really great to be on a competitive spotlight like that with brands that were that big. And we're like, the Mom Museum's a 501c3 nonprofit, So if you're passionate about it and you have the talent, I didn't know we could do that. Yeah. And now you prove to yourself that you can do that. So it was super cool.
That's cool. Yeah. So like, how long has the podcast been around?
This is first season's done, working on second season now.
Oh, okay. So it's just been a year, huh?
Yep.
And how did that idea come about? Was that from like the Mom Museum and then they just hired you to put it together?
Yeah. So a lot of people that are from inside organized crime, that life, they gravitate towards a museum. And so a lot of our board members are from that life, undercovers, reformed criminals, et cetera, et cetera. And so the hosts happened to be involved with the museum and willing to do something, and they believe in the purpose. So they're like, we want to give our time to do something. with you. And so we did a lot of experimenting. Like, is it going to be, they're going to be in cars, driving through Vegas, going through the things that they used to do undercover here.
Yeah.
So that was wild. We had a whole caravan of people. No, we didn't do that. And then at one point they put me in front of the camera and had me interview them live in front of people at the museum. And, you know, I'm fine with that. I can talk all day, but that's not where I'm optimally placed. You know what I mean? And so that was fun though. And we didn't do that. And then we settled at a podcast. Okay. And undercovers are natural storytellers, and they glean information out of people. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what their jobs were. And so they've been easy to work with.
That's so interesting. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Nevada Women's Film Festival. Yes. So this was your first year being part of it, right?
Yeah. So I volunteered 2 years ago in a small way. And I find more and more about myself, and now it's the true fact. I like the big picture. I can't just do one small task. Like I can, but it takes a lot of restraint. Like if it was a sandwich making line and I was just putting the peanut butter on.
You got to be more involved.
Yeah, exactly. And so I saw what they were doing, and it's such an amazing, I don't know what your interpretation of the film festival is, but I saw you there.
It was good. This is, I mean, I've been there a few times as just like a audience member, just to go watch the films and support filmmakers. Right on. And then this year was my first year that I got in with the short films that I had.
Oh, amazing.
Because I had like women leads and women producers and all that, so it was really cool.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, see, I'm newer than you to it then. But I mean, you're so involved, and I want to thank you for getting all the community gathering in your living room to talk and do their creative confessionals.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's absolutely amazing and inspiring. But also, Nevada Women's Film Festival. So I volunteered, and then I'm like, I said, hey, I'm interested. And then they said, we want to get women in film Nevada. We want to get serious about this. And I'm not sure exactly how long they've been doing that, but I told them I was very interested in that. And so it's kind of the parent organization of Nevada Women's Film Festivals. Mm-hmm. So the Board of Women in Film put on Nevada Women's Film Festival and other events when the America Film Market was here the first time. It's been in California the first time it was here. Mm-hmm. We put on a mixer and and so we had it right next to the venue. And so as soon as that was done on a Wednesday, I think it was, they came over and we introduced ourselves to that collective of people, you know, that audience, to be like, hey, we're here. We want to connect. And, you know, there's a lot of growth happening here with new studios in development, or soon to be, if the tax incentives go through. And so obviously it's a really exciting time. Yeah. So Women in Film Nevada, please reach out to us. There's ample amount of opportunity to get involved right now. And then with Nevada Women's Film Festival, I took a role in promotions and events because I really like to gather people and to build an environment for creatives to connect. Mm-hmm. And so that was really fun this year. We had at the Barrack Museum, one of our the 10-year gala, I guess we'll call it. And we call it the Party of the Decade because it's the 10th year for Nevada Women's Film Festival. And shout out to Nikki Korda. She's amazing. She's been the lead woman in charge of the whole thing. And Dr. Heather Addison and the whole crew. And so, and UNLV, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're all professors. And the film head, Dr. Heather Addison, I never had this kind of community at the college that I went to, like I told you. And so there's so many opportunities at UNLV, even if you never went. Like, I never went to UNLV.
Yeah, me neither. I went to UNR.
Okay. The rival.
Yeah.
And you feel the same way about UNLV? The
yeah, I mean, I see it like growing, and I see like all the people that come out of there, because I meet them outside, like when they're, you know, mixers or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I see like the connection that's happening to the community. They're reaching out to the community more, and they're allowing people to like the place where it took place, the theater inside of the school. Right. Like, I think that's the second festival that I went to that year. Or this year or last year, where it happened there. Okay, right. You know, like, I didn't know that theater existed until these festivals started coming around, and it's like, oh, it's an awesome like place, you know. Right. Yeah. What is that building called again? FDH? Yeah. Yeah. FDH. Yeah. It's a like state of the art sound. Yeah. Projector, it's nice, everything. And it's big, and like it fits a lot of people. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So.
And what I want to say is too, Nevada Women's Film Festival is in June. So if you're interested, like we're open for submissions now.
Yeah.
And also open for volunteers. So for me, it's like I'm a hugger. I'm a lover. And sometimes in Las Vegas, I mean, now that I found the people that are welcoming in Las Vegas in the film industry here, like I get hugs now. But before that, I was having a hard time, getting hugs from people.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm happy.
And so it's such like a welcoming environment for people to really connect and tell their stories.
For sure. So, yeah, I mean, you do a lot, but we don't see you a lot. So you told me what your goal is for 2025. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So I really want to make more of a presence on social media. I've always, from the dawn of the time, when we were younger, we grew up without it.
Yeah.
And then there was a transition.
And then it was MySpace.
And when I saw my friends, I saw them not less interested in hanging out with me because of me, but for the images that they could get of us to share.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I refused to join in. I was like anarchy all the way. And so finally I realized, to the point where the person that I was working for bought me a phone so he could contact me. And so I realized that you need to be able to show people.
You need a presence.
Yeah, you do. And so I've been spending my whole career in other people's brands. I got to invest in my own. Yeah. And so that's 2025 for me.
And are you considering creating your own project? Like, what kind of projects would you create? Because you say you're not really into the whole narrative thing.
Right.
Like, what kind of film? Oh, and you did a documentary too that we didn't talk about.
Yeah. So the Centennial Commission funded a documentary about the building that the Mob Museum is in. So it's original courthouse and post office for the city of Las Vegas, and so I might get some things wrong in this podcast interview, and I might leave some people out that really deserve to be a part of my creative journey. So I apologize to the people that I've left out. But the date, I believe, was 1933 that the building was built. And so it's been a courthouse, it's been a post office, like the Kefauver hearings that happened to take down organized crime in its heyday. One of those hearings was held inside that courtroom. And so Oscar Goodman was like, what's going on with this building? Because he was an attorney. And so he bought the building and he had to create some kind of institution out of it. And he's like, what makes Las Vegas different than any other city? And he thought it was the way it was built, with the original casinos and organized crime. And so it's how there's a lot you can learn about Las Vegas in that building too. And so that's what drew me to do it. I didn't even know it really existed until my family wanted to go when they were visiting, and then that's why I applied, because I'm like, this place is, because my career had been in news, and so I love building community through education and knowledge, and that's what they're doing there. And so it seemed like a pretty easy. Plus, I always wanted to work in a gallery too, so I'm like, gallery, museum, sure. Maybe they could be similar. And so, so I was a director on it for that documentary, and maybe it'll be the first Emmy I win. I've been nominated for 4, but haven't won one yet. So I know that a lot of our friends here are in the Emmy. Yeah. They like can't even hold how many Emmys they've won.
Yeah, I know.
So
I feel the same. I just won one. I just need one, and I put it up there. And
yeah, I know, good. Right? So maybe this will do it, and then the quest will end.
That's awesome. So directing the documentary, like to go to my previous question, like what kind of content would you like to do documentaries, or what kind of like projects would you like to go into, like in 2025 or in the future?
So one of my biggest projects, I think, is going to be continuing, like, artistically. Yes, I need to get into that, but like technically, I found that I need to be able to do photography to be able to help gather people, like take proof that we were here, post it on social media. So I've been teaching myself photography. Okay. And the biggest thing that I want to learn next is how to use a flash on a camera. I mean, that sounds so silly. Yeah. But I just
I feel you. I don't really use that much flash. And
exactly.
That's because it's like a little intimidating, all the strobes and changes.
It is. So I feel like that will up my level to be able to share my stuff, to be able to take photos
on your phone.
Of it. I know, right? I know.
But I feel you. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And then also, like, just to there's so much opportunity, because I know how to do motion graphics. I know how to shoot. I know how to write. I know how to do promotions. So I need to throw that information on a piece of paper and say, how does that work to my advantage for me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not for somebody else, like I've always done, but what does that work for me? I would love to try long form because I've always done 30 seconds, 1 minute, 20 minutes, you know, or just a candid interview like this, editing that.
Well,
that.
Your podcast is like an hour.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But that's not like a written long format. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's like
that's just the
whatever happens. Yeah. Like our team does the research, we build an outline, but you're not really like line by line directing each.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential. But the main thing is whatever I do, I need to let people know that I'm doing it. So 2025 is going to happen.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. That was a lot of information, but I loved it. And I love like your whole, the way you describe your lone wolf thing to like eventually becoming more, you know, working with other creatives. So that's awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, check out Hannah. She's going to start posting on her Instagram. So check her out and see you next time. Peace.
Bye. Thank you.